Edgewood University. A paranormal romance written by Tanya Grice. Year 1. Episode 1. Pilot. When tragedy strikes, it's hard not to fall in the depths of depression and let yourself descend into the dark, vast empty space. "Tyler! Catch!" laughed Layla Holland, throwing a ball with her childhood friend, Tyler Tate. He caught the ball and grinned. "Tyler? Layla, the Hollands are here," called Tyler's mother from the front porch. "Okay, coming, Mom," yelled Tyler from the backyard. He gave Layla a goofy look, and she laughed as they threw the ball on the ground and made their way toward the Tate estate. Layla and Tyler had been best friends since they were in diapers and just turned 12 2 weeks before. They were inseparable, but their parents were lifelong friends and were happy their children were so close. Tyler had short dark hair and brown eyes and was surprisingly muscular for his age. Layla had long, wavy, copper hair that hung past her shoulders, bright green eyes, and a slender figure. They lived in a small town called Mortar and attended the same school. They were happy with their little mundane life, not knowing something dark was lurking and ready to disrupt their perfect balance. "Do you remember the story about the beast in the forest?" asked Tyler, and Layla nodded. Ever since their parents told them the story, the kids would sneak out in the middle of the night and explore the woods between their houses. "Yeah? What about it?" she asked, moving around a fallen tree branch. The fallen leaves crunched beneath their feet, and they did their best not to step on sticks and branches. The instant camera bounced against Layla's chest, and the sharp blade in Tyler's hand gleamed in the moonlight. Tyler gave Layla a clever look, and she snorted. "Tyler, it's just a story parents tell their kids to scare them. Don't tell me you believe in this stuff. Monsters aren't real." She scoffed, and he looked at her thoughtfully. "You know, some of it has some truth to it." She looked at her best friend and laughed. "You sound as crazy as the town nut job. Don't let your kids go into the woods at night. Ooh, there's a huge monster with big blue eyes and purple feathers. Be careful because that thing will hug you to death." She snorted, and he snickered. He grabbed her arms, pulled her close, and smirked. "You never know what you might run into in a dark forest," he whispered, and she laughed, pushing him away. "Yeah, okay. I think I just found Mortar's next town nut job." Suddenly they heard the loud sound of a tree branch snapping and stopped laughing. Layla grabbed Tyler's arm and gasped. "What was that?" she whispered, looking through the trees, and Tyler shook his head, alarmed. "I don't know. Maybe a bear?" He breathed, looking around and feeling a chill down his spine. They listened and heard growling from behind. Layla swallowed hard, looking at Tyler, and they slowly turned their heads. A tall, dark figure with bright red glowing eyes stared at them, snarling, and the kids backed away slowly. "What is that?" she whispered, and Tyler looked at her wide-eyed. "Now, do you believe in monsters?" he asked. She swallowed hard, looked at the beast, and nodded. "I do now," she breathed. Tyler looked at the monster and turned toward Layla. "Run, Lay. Run as fast as you can. Get out of here and get help," he said, and she shook her head. "What about you?" "Don't worry about me. Go," he said seriously and tapped her arm. Layla took off running as fast as she could, but stopped when she heard Tyler scream and turned around. 2 red, glowing eyes burned into hers, and the beast knocked her to the ground. She whimpered, trying to scoot away from the horrifying creature, but she wasn't fast enough, and the beast sank its sharp, long teeth into her side. She screamed and saw a large rock beside her. The monster bit harder, and she grabbed the rock and smacked the beast in the head with it. The creature screeched, whimpered, and disappeared into the forest. Layla groaned and sobbed as she saw blood all over her. She panted heavily, seeing the deep wound in her side, and her eyes rolled into the back of her head as she fainted. "Tell me what happened," demanded Peter Tate, holding his wife, Maya. The Mortar Sheriff's Department got a call about screams in the forest and found Layla Holland unconscious, wounded, and Tyler Tate beside her. The girl looked like a wild animal attacked her, but strangely, the boy was uninjured. Her shirt was torn and blood-stained, but he didn't have any wounds, and it baffled the medical staff. The sheriff looked at Tyler's father and shook his head. "I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure it was an animal attack. Thankfully, Tyler wasn't hurt, but as for Miss Holland, she's in bad shape, he said. Layla, where's my daughter? Exclaimed Celine Holland, rushing into the hospital. Calm down, dear, said Daniel Holland, chasing after her, but she ignored her husband. She saw the Tates and the sheriff and walked toward them. Peter looked at Celine with care and held her shoulders. Celine, Daniel, we will get your daughter the best care possible. She's going to be okay, he said, and Maya sniffed, nodding. Peter hugged Layla's mother and let her go. Was Tyler hurt too? Yes, Daniel. The sheriff was about to answer, but Peter beat him to it. He was. He did everything he could to protect Layla, and he is worse off than her. He said a bear attacked them. Maya lied and sniffed. Peter wrapped his arm around her shoulders and rubbed her arm gently. Celine gave Daniel a worried look, and Peter and Maya exchanged glances. Listen, Celine and Daniel, we have something we need to tell you, breathed Peter, and Daniel gave him a questioning look. What is it? He asked. Our family is leaving Mortar, and I'm afraid we aren't coming back, said Maya sadly. Celine's and Daniel's eyes widened, and Celine blew a long breath. What about Lay? Asked Daniel, and Peter sighed. Tell her what you think is best, he said, and Layla's parents only nodded. Layla slowly opened her eyes and looked around. She panicked, sitting up, and she saw that she was in a hospital room. Tyler? She called. Celine and Daniel opened their eyes and got up from their chairs. Layla, honey, it's Mom and Dad, said Celine, holding her daughter's hand. Layla had been in a coma for the past 3 days, and memories of her and Tyler being chased by a monster invaded her mind. She gasped and looked at her parents with wide eyes. Where's Tyler? She whispered, searching their eyes. Her parents looked at each other, and then at their daughter sadly. I'm so sorry, honey. He didn't make it, lied Daniel. Layla gasped and looked into his eyes as tears filled hers. What? No, she cried, starting to sob, and her mother and father wrapped their arms around her. The animal bite healed quickly, leaving an ugly scar, and Layla made sure to keep it covered at all times. It took a couple of months for her to accept that Tyler was gone, and his parents left Mortar with no intentions of coming back, but she had a deep gut feeling that her best friend was still alive. However, she kept those thoughts to herself, because she didn't want anyone to think she was crazy and put her in a mental hospital. Suddenly, things around Layla began to change and become strange. She distanced herself from her friends at school, developed anger issues, got into fights, and failed her classes. The Hollands worried about their daughter and started grounding her, but that didn't last long. Layla snuck out of her bedroom window in the middle of the night, and in the morning, her parents found her sleeping at the edge of the forest. When they asked her where she had been and what she was doing, Layla couldn't remember, for Celine and Daniel decided to take their daughter out of school and keep her home. Celine waited for Daniel to head to work and called Maya Tate. She explained Layla's behavior and the strange things that had happened lately. Maya told Celine that her daughter was acting out and still not over her son's death, but if the behavior didn't change in a few weeks, she should call her back. Celine waited a couple of weeks and things got even stranger, but the phone line was disconnected when she tried calling Maya back. The woman sobbed and felt hopeless. That was the only phone number she had to get a hold of the Tates, and now they were gone too. Present day. Layla, would you come in here, please? Called Celine from the living room. Layla, dressed in black sweatpants and an oversized black shirt, walked into the room and plopped into one of the armchairs, dangling her legs off the side. Her hair was in a ponytail and her fingernails were painted black. She was now 16 and it had been 4 years since the attack. She looked at her mother and put her hand on her chin. Yeah? She asked. Daniel and Celine exchanged an uneasy look and then looked at their daughter. If we found a way that you could be yourself again, would you try it? Asked her mother, and Layla looked at her thoughtfully. Depends on what it is you want me to do, she said with big eyes. There's a college for troubled young adults, and we think you could benefit from it. Maya Tate sent us the information. Celine wasn't sure who sent the information, but since Tyler's mother's phone line was disconnected, she assumed it was her. Layla raised her eyebrows and inhaled sharply. How are they? Your parents looked at each other, and Daniel sighed. Better? He lied, and his daughter nodded, blowing a breath. She thought momentarily and looked at her parents. If you and Mrs. Tate think it will help, then I'll try it. You don't have to go for our sake. Chuckled her mother, and Layla gave her a thoughtful look. Okay, I'll go, but I'm coming back home if I don't like it. Her father nodded, tapped the fireplace mantel, and handed his daughter a light brown envelope. What's this? She asked, looking at her parents oddly. Just open it, said Daniel, grinning. Layla blew a breath, opened it, pulled out a letter, and read it out loud. Dear Miss Holland, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted into Edgewood Academy for the Gifted and Different. A car will collect you and your belongings at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. We look forward to meeting you and showing you amazing things. All of your questions will be answered upon arrival. She turned the paper over and saw the backside was blank. She sighed and looked at her parents. Is that it? She asked, and Celine and Daniel nodded. Yes, besides a letter explaining about the school and instructions not to give you that envelope unless you decided to go, said her father, and she looked at him oddly. I don't understand. Did you sign me up for this place or tell them about me? The note clearly states I was selected. Your parents shook their heads and sighed. No, lie. We wouldn't do anything like that without talking to you first, said Daniel, and Layla scowled, thinking that her parents were lying to her. Well, I guess I better go start packing. She scowled, jumped off the chair, and left the room. Celine gave Daniel a worried look, and he only nodded. A black sedan pulled into the drive at 8 o'clock on the dot, and Layla said goodbye to her parents. The driver put her suitcases in the trunk and waited by the rear passenger's side door. Celine brushed her daughter's hair behind her ear and smiled. Call us when you get there and have fun, she said, and Layla nodded. The Hollands hugged their daughter one last time, and Layla walked toward the car. She got in and watched her home and parents disappear from the back window. She sighed, facing forward and wiping a tear from her cheek. Layla, is it? Asked the driver, and she smiled quickly, nodding. Don't worry so much, little one. You're going to love Edgewood, he said. I hope so. She sighed, looking out the window. The driver glanced at her in the mirror and turned toward the highway. Well, Miss Layla, you might want to shield your eyes when we get on the highway, he said, and she looked at him oddly. Why? She asked, and he chuckled. Because let's just say things are about to become very bright, he said, sliding on a pair of sunglasses and picking up speed. Suddenly, the car filled with a bright, blinding white light, and Layla groaned, shielding her eyes with her arm.